Welcome to my Perry the Pig Tempest Strike submission for our build contest, or his build contest. This is the submission I'm calling Zappy Bird. The idea behind this build here is that we can get our birds to build stacks for us for Stormbolt, and then Stormbolt only goes up to 15 stacks with the birds, so we need some way to spend them. Ideally as fast-ish as the birds are generating them. And we're going to be using Tempest Strike for that. Tempest Strike has a node in it that lets us spend those stacks for 60% increased, or rather 60% more damage on those Storm Bolts. So those birds are generating them for us fairly quickly. Every time our birds attack, they have a chance of giving us stacks of some sort of wisdom. Don't remember exactly what they're called, but those boost our damage about 5 flat damage for every stack we get. If we're in an area where we can get our birds attacking fairly consistently, we can get up to around 16 stacks with 3 birds, I think, maybe 20. I'm not entirely sure. But so those birds are buffing our damage, they're giving us stacks. Our Tempest Strike is giving us additional flat damage. Every time we hit somebody, we're getting Lagan's Favor. Lagan's Favor gives both us and the birds flat damage. So we're buffing the birds are buffing us. Stormbolt is doing a lot of our damage. Tempest Strike is proccing Stormbolt. So, I don't know, I kind of thought this was a fairly nifty build. It's one of the few builds where you can get minions and yourself to both be doing damage at the same time. At least that's the goal behind this, is to kind of be working with your minions. Of course, in 1.0 we did get a patch that gave us the Falconer, whose entire thing is using a bird to fight alongside them that scales off of their own stats. So this is a little less unique in the 1.0 world, but yeah, this is kind of a build I've been trying to build for quite a while, especially with birds. I was intrigued by this node over here that lets them share the increased lightning damage that we can get on our gear, allowing us to essentially scale our own damage and minion damage with the same affix, which I thought was nifty. If we're looking at the tree here, here's the stuff that's mostly benefiting us. They're generating these aspect of the crow stacks. Gives us 5 damage per stack. As you could see there, I think we got up to 12, but if we were fighting a boss, we generally get up to closer to 16 or 20. And, 100 stacks or 100 flat damage is nothing to sneeze at if we can get up to that. They're also generating an absurd amount of armor shred for us, which really helps our damage since we're primarily a hit-based build. Here's the stuff that's primarily for the crows down here. They're getting crit chance every time we hit. We're hitting with melee attacks with Tempest Strike a lot, so those should be getting them up to pretty decent crit. And then yeah, they're sharing the lightning damage effectiveness. If you wanted to try and say, the minion damage isn't worth it, you could drop pretty much all of these points. Potentially go over here and use the crow as a traversal skill, pick up a different skill instead of leap, maybe Warcry, maybe Frenzy Totem. That's what I was doing previously, and it felt pretty good against bosses, but I kind of prefer Leap over Stormcrow just because we're building a lot of melee attack speed. We're not building cast speed, and the Stormcrow teleport didn't feel great. It was a fairly long animation. But if you wanted to, you could certainly come up here, grab some more dodge. I think this might actually provide decent survivability to our birds if we were to put more points in here, if we capped that out. I think it would actually keep them alive fairly well because of our Spriggan over here. And I haven't gotten to high enough corruption where I need the extra survival for the birds, but the Spriggan's providing us a little bit of healing, but more importantly, this crit strike avoid for both us and the birds, as well as base crit chance for both us and the birds. I'm not using Maelstrom on Gathering Storm. I was using Maelstrom and Warcry together to try and get 20 stacks of Maelstrom. It worked pretty well. It didn't feel great, again, because of that cast speed. We're not stacking it, and hitting one of those buttons essentially every 3 seconds felt pretty bad. I didn't enjoy playing it, so I took it off. Additionally, they're giving us a little bit more flat damage. We're getting a lot of flat damage from a lot of different places, so it's not as big of a deal, but we also heal our minions quite a bit with this aura here. And this note here is kind of interesting. Because our Stormbolts scale off of our maximum mana, because our bird's maximum health increases significantly when we stack attributes, we really want a lot of attunement. And the more attunement, the better. Since we're stacking a lot of attunement, and our birds can get a pretty decent amount of increased dodge here, 200% increased dodge, assuming we could get to 100 attunement, which I'd love to get to, that's not terrible dodge chance. It's not great. It's probably around 20% dodge chance maybe, but, 20% essentially more health isn't bad. Yeah, so that's kind of the purpose of the Spriggan here, just providing us with crit chance, crit avoid, and then some survivability for our minions, primarily. We would love to cold convert our Spriggan and our birds, and then maybe Stormbolt as well. Unfortunately, I think it's a bug. Converting minions does not get them to proc effects for you here. So Friends of the Tempests, they give you storm stacks when they use a lightning skill. If you convert it to cold, it then gives you stacks when your minions use a cold skill. Except it doesn't work when the minion is converted. If you use the cold one, you have to use the cold minions that are summoned by Avalanche, because those are the only naturally cold minions. If you convert it to physical, you can use literally every other minion, I believe. Yeah, every other minion in your tree is physical by default, except Storm Totem. So Crows and Storm Totem are the only thing that can generate Lightning Stormbolt stacks, and the cold minions summoned by Avalanche are the only thing that can give you cold stacks. Then we got Leap over here. Leap is giving us Frenzy and our minions Frenzy, which helps them generate more storm stacks, gives us more stacks of the aspect of the Crow, and gives us more Armor Shred. It also cleanses, provides a little bit of healing, and of course provides these lightning Stormbolts as we leap, as well as making us immune. It's a traversal skill. Tempest Strike kind of pulls everything together. Ideally, this would be at 4 out of 4. I must have lost a skill point somewhere. I'm not entirely sure where, but I got to respec, get that back. This is the big node that we're really counting on over here, though. This gives us 60% more damage, essentially every single time we swing, for our Stormbolts, which is where a lot of our damage is coming from. You can see we've turned off all of the Tempests, so we're essentially a Tempest list strike right now. I don't know if it's a strike build, but we come up here for just a little bit more damage for our melee, because again, we're actually getting a decent amount of melee damage from our birds. Gathering Storm actually scales with melee damage. Because of this node here, we are in fact using an axe to help us with our crit chance. So Tempest Strike is not dealing no damage. It's not great damage, but it's actually not bad. That's kind of Tempest Strike. Gathering Storm, we grab this node here, gives us more damage the more maximum mana or more current mana we have. So we're trying to build quite a lot of mana. It also makes it cost more, but it's only 1% of current mana, and at 418, which I'm at right now, that's only around 4 mana. With a wand, we can get that down to 1 mana, very easily maintainable by the 5 mana that we're getting back from Tempest Strike. In a perfect world, we'd get a bunch of legendaries that have mana on uniques, plus mana as a legendary affix, like on the Stormcarved Testament. I don't have those right now. I haven't gotten this character very high, and I haven't been playing in 1.0 too long, unfortunately. So, but yeah, that's that. We're dual wielding. This helps us with our clear. As far as I know, it doesn't help against bosses unless they're bosses that have multiple enemies in them. I'm not sure I need all 3 of these anymore, but this just kind of helps us keep up our number of storm stacks, since Tempest Strike does attack fairly quickly. And then yeah, that's kind of mostly it. We also come down here on some previous builds that I had. I was having mana issues. I kind of think I might be able to take this back at this point, but it's not a huge deal. But yeah, that's kind of the build. Thanks for coming. Thanks for checking it out. Ciao.